Is the Pac-12 falling apart? The new Pac, that's a question we've heard many, many times before, and they've always found a way to come through. But have they hit an iceberg here that they cannot steer around? Is Boise State having buyer's remorse? Is this turning out not to be the deal that we thought it was, or a good deal here for Boise State? What is the future of the Pac-12? What is the future of the Mountain West amidst the breaking news that is still developing as I'm making this video? We're going to talk about all of that today. We're going to talk about, for anybody that's not been scrolling through Twitter all day over the last 12 hours and is completely caught off guard here by the amount of news that's poured in, I'm going to break down kind of step by step what has happened here. Again, the last 12 hours, or depending when you watch this video, maybe the last 24 or so hours. I'm going to break down step by step what has happened here today that has changed the trajectory of the Pac-12. Then I'm going to break down what is expected to happen next. And then I'm going to break down some scenarios here, some options that remain for the Pac-12 if what is expected to happen doesn't happen, or even if the anticipated moves do happen, what the conference may end up doing anyway. And then finally, I'm going to discuss whether or not this is still a good move for Boise State. Anybody who remembers my initial reaction to the Pac-12 news in the first place, the addition of Boise State, San Jose State, Fresno State, and Colorado State, knows that I was not head over heels for this move. I was cautiously optimistic, but I did have a lot of potential fears, and some of those have now been realized, and we're going to discuss whether or not this is still a good move here for Boise State. So let's get into it. There's a lot to discuss, and I want to get through this as quickly as we can here. So right off the bat, and again, I do apologize that I am making this video so late. I wanted to give time for as much of this news to come out as possible so I could present a complete picture, or as complete a picture as anybody can on this point. And also give myself, I had some very, very negative emotional reactions to this news, and I wanted to give myself some time to overcome that and look at this as close as I can, logically and analytically. So first off the bat here, Memphis, Tulane, USF, UTSA, those four schools, and not that they were necessarily trying to bring every single one of them over, but those were the four main that were being reported as targets for the Pac-12 trying to take from the American Athletic Conference. Well, it was reported that they were facing a $25 million exit fee, a lot higher than what I was anticipating. Cincinnati paid $18 million. SMU, most recent participant to leave, paid $25 million. But there's some different circumstances going on there, or close to $25 million. But there's some different circumstances going on there. Well, it seems like they are using the precedent of SMU to enforce on the four members that wanted to leave. And so $25 million, which again is a lot higher than what I was expecting, is what is being stated as the exit fees. Now, the Pac-12 really had a chance here to go, okay, we're going to jump, strike while the iron's hot, take the best teams, we'll take a loss of, having to pay up front for some big teams, we'll help those member institutions come over, but at the end of the day, we will be in a stronger position. They could have avoided all of this, but instead, Teresa Gold, in her infinite wisdom, offered those four teams only $2.5 million apiece to come join the mysterious, future uncertain Pac-12. We're seeing the same mistakes in a different way, but the same mistakes that killed the original Pac-12 repeated again. And at the end of the day, I don't know what we expected. Why did we think this would be any different? The original Pac-12, the reason that it failed was an overvaluation of its own worth, an overvaluation of other people's interest in it. And their ivory tower ideas that there's somehow this elite, great, at that time, academic institutions, now maybe athletic or financial interest. There are these huge potential media level interest institutions that anybody would be lucky to join. And so, yeah, we'll throw you a couple million. You're still going to have to cover $22.5 million of your dollars of your exit fees to join our conference that doesn't have a TV deal, doesn't have any set bowl games right now, is a large conference spread with no firm ideas to expand into any kind of East Coast, West Coast divisions. A lot of uncertainty in the air, but we'll give you a couple million. You guys, it'll be worth it. Trust us. I mean, again, it's a different variation on the same story. The Pac-12 leadership thinking that the brand that they have is worth so much to others that they can kind of do whatever they want and other people will pay up for it. And those American athletic institutions, the AAC teams, they said, nah. And they reaffirmed their commitment to the American Athletic Conference. Now, again, they haven't, signed like an additional guarantee of rights or any kind of contracts. They've just released a statement of support saying, yeah, we're with you, American Athletic. This is where we are. It could be a bargaining chip. We'll talk about that here in a second. But for now, the Pac-12 has lost a lot of momentum there. Now, what they did instead was they redirected to the Mountain West. So instead of coming back, countering against American Athletic Conference, said, well, we don't need you in the first place. We're going back to the Mountain West. And the Mountain West was ready. Mountain West was ready. Gloria Nevarez, who, again, incredible commissioner. I mean, it is such a difference watching her operate versus Teresa Gold. I mean, I should do the other way. Watching Gloria Nevarez operate versus Teresa Gold operate. It's a completely different scale of operations here. And she was ready. She using that $111 million so far. It has increased now. We'll talk about that. But $111 million so far, turned around, said, okay, thanks for giving us this money. We're going to use it to keep our teams. And said to the Mountain West teams that would stay that they would give them a bonus, a one-time financial check bonus to stay in the conference, and then also guarantee that there be no drop in TV revenue for them either, and the media revenue. I'm not exactly sure the technicalities of how that's guaranteed. I assume again that they'll supplement any kind of loss from Fox or whoever it is saying, yeah, we don't want to pay as much. They'll supplement with some of that money. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but that's what is being reported, that they are going to give them that one time and also guarantee them no loss. Air Force accepts. That was a team that the American Athletic Conference was looking at bringing over, potentially Pac-12 target, though I think, again, the main threat was American Athletic Conference because Navy and Army already in that one get to have the Commander-in-Chief trophy all under one roof. Air Force accepts. They're staying in the Mountain West. Utah State does not. Utah State is offered by the Pac-12. They go to the Pac-12. So now the Pac-12 is sitting at 7 teams. UNLV, they say, yeah, they kind of put out an American Athletic Conference kind of thing. They sign, but not anything legally binding. Say, yeah, we support you, Mountain West. But they have also said we're keeping our options open, and they are evaluating them. In fact, right now, while I'm shooting this video, the UNLV board is meeting together to decide what should happen. And it's being reported that there's no expected decision announcement going to be made tonight. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? Maybe by the time I post this video, something will be made. But the anticipation is that at some point tomorrow, they will make a decision, or the next few days, they'll make a decision on the future here of UNLV. So we may be waiting in suspense for a couple of days to find out what happens here with the Pac-12. So there is flux there. There were some other interesting developments before we get into kind of discussing this. Gonzaga was reported by Brett McMurphy as a team that was intending to join the Mountain West, and then the Gonzaga athletic director, or his athletic department, I'm not sure exactly if it was him or somebody else, came out and said, hey, no, that's not, we haven't made any official decisions. Brett McMurphy is not just someone that spouts off. He's going to have a clear source. He's been well documented, verified over countless years of being right when he comes out and says something. One of the best informed insiders in all of college football or athletics in general. So if Brett McMurphy is saying that, I assume that they're inside. Maybe again, not at an official level yet, not at a public statement ready level, but there has been a decision made that they're going to come join the Pac-12. What could be a reason that their athletic department is rushing to say, hey, back off on that, is probably because there are contingencies. They're probably not just joining a conference that's not a conference yet. So if the Pac-12 can get, and again, I don't have anything official on this, that some other people were also theorizing on this. But what is potentially a reason is that they're not just going to join a conference that's not a conference yet. If they can get to 8 teams, then maybe that's a contingency that, okay, then now we'll come join. There are other contingencies out there. My guess is once those are fulfilled, then Gonzaga will make an official statement. But they don't want to be caught out to dry like the Mountain West 5 is kind of right now if nothing ends up happening. And now they're also in the same boat of having to make amends with their conference, maybe pay fees, something like that. So that's my guess there. But Gonzaga, I mean, that's some good news for the conference. I mean, if Gonzaga came and joined this, you would have one of the top basketball conferences in the entire country. And definitely in the group of 5, West Coast, this would be one of the best basketball conferences in the country right now. You already have already have most of the top basketball brands in the Mountain West already. Washington State has done some things. I mean, Washington State and Oregon State would be like bottom level basketball wise in this conference, but then adding Gonzaga would be incredible. I mean, you'd automatically have 4 or 5 plus bid teams out of this conference right off the bat. So that is some good news if that can happen. But then, with UNLV's decision being up in the air whether or not they want to come over yet, and still needing to get to still needing to get to 8 teams, it was also announced as part of the Gonzaga. So give and take away positives and negatives. As part of the Gonzaga news, it was also reported that UConn was being looked at as a football-only member. For anybody who maybe hasn't even heard of UConn football, because I think that would probably be 90% of the country, their last winning season, and I'm not counting 6-7 or getting to a mid-level 500, but their last winning season was 2010, and their last 10-win season was never, at least at an FBS level. They have never had a 10-win season at FBS level. They're 2-2 this year. They may get to a winning season potentially. They have some tough teams on there, but they're not going to get to a 10-win season this year. That's who the Pac-12 is now in a situation where they're having to consider adding to the conference. That's where the Pac-12 is. And that is where we come to the end of the official news out there. And one more element, I had said 111 million. Well, we're currently sitting at 155 million in poaching and exit fees being paid to the Mountain West right now. So 155 million is currently what we're at. Now, that's a split. Some of that is coming from the conference, the Pac-12. Some of that is coming from the member institutions. It's been reported to me and also in the media ether that the Pac-12 was going to be giving some assistance to those Mountain West teams. So it's a split of that 155 million either way. But reminder, the Pac-12 war chest that they won out of their legal fees out of their legal dealings after the previous Pac-12 teams left is only 255 million. And you're already over halfway into that just to get what now, just based on all the reporting that's out there right now, would be Mountain West schools, 5 Mountain West schools, plus a 6th or UConn. 155 million for 5 Mountain West institutions plus UConn, unless UNLV joins. That's where we're sitting at right now. And this is why I was so shocked by the initial news that Boise State, not just Boise State, anybody was joining the Pac-12. It is not what I predicted at all. I predicted a reverse merger or a merger where Oregon State and Washington State join the Mountain West, or that the Mountain West or 9 or so of the institutions join the Pac-12 and they keep the name, but it's really just Mountain West teams coming over. Some form of combination that way. That's what I anticipated. We're getting a lot closer to that right now. But that is what I anticipated originally. Because a lot of people had said, like, it's a great idea, bring the best of the best. We got all this room in the Pac-12. They got all this money. They bring in the best of the Mountain West, best of the American Athletic Conference, maybe the best of the Sun Belt. You take just the cream of the crop, leave the chaff, and you have this automatic, always going to be that 5th spot CFP team, or maybe even a team that could contend for getting a autonomous spot. I mean, there are no autonomous spots yet, but their autonomous status back from the NCAA, bringing more CFP revenue. I mean, that's where people were wanting this to go, and it looked for a second like they might. But I had said all along that only happens if everybody jumps together. It only happens if all the institutions at one time, for the Mountain West, American Athletic Conference, Sun Belt, whoever it is, come together. Because otherwise you get left with a situation like this, where Pac-12 greed gives these other conferences a chance to rebuild themselves, a chance to reaffirm and re-strengthen, and then come back and attack you potentially. That is what happens when you lose that momentum. There are so many variables already up in the air, and it's already such a tough decision for the athletic department to decide, we're going to leave all of these relationships that we have to step out into the blue in this new venture, shifting around, all the expenses that come from joining a conference, whether it's exit fees or just changing patch logos. I mean, it's a complicated enterprise to move from one conference to another. It happens, but it's not something that happens every single day. And it is a complicated enterprise, and it also brings a lot of thought. Again, institutions that you have connections with academically, in addition to athletically, you already have all that working against you. So if you have that momentum, if you have the opportunity, if you have all of this interest, you have got to seize it while you can. You have got to be aggressive. You have got to be a harder fighter than the commissioner across the table from you. And Teresa Gold isn't. She's a sneaky, underhanded player that takes the olive branch of friendship handed to her and uses it to stab in the back the Mountain West, take their best teams, and then assume that other teams are going to want to come and join. Versus, I mean, again, if you're going to be sneaky, underhanded, aggressive, if you're going to be that type of person, at least do it well. But you can't be sneaky, underhanded, and incompetent, or you end up where we currently are right now with the Pac-12. And it is not a good situation right now for the Pac-12. Because what happens next? Well, what's being reported is most likely is that Utah State, obviously they're already joining, but then UNLV likely going to come over as well. But now you're sitting in a situation where if UNLV joins, they're going to have to pay the total exit fees, poaching fees altogether, $169.5 million. You're paying $169.5 million for a conference that's going to be Oregon State, Washington State, Fresno State, San Diego State, Colorado State, UNLV, Utah State, and Boise State. It's just the Mountain West minus Nevada, San Jose State, New Mexico, Hawaii, Wyoming, and Air Force. And yeah, that is a better conference. It is. Adding Oregon State, Washington State, and getting those teams, if it was free, if there was no money on the table, and it was just simply, we're going to take these best teams and put them into this new Pac-12, then yeah, I mean, that's a strong grouping of teams. It is the best of the conference members left available, again, besides Colorado State and Utah State, which are pretty much interchangeable with a lot of other teams out there. But best of what's available. It's a very strong basketball conference, and it's pretty good on face value. But it's not worth $169.5 million. It's not. This grouping is not. And again, the teams that you're leaving behind in the Mountain West, it's not that like these are garbage programs. It's not like they every single year add 0 to your conference schedule. Now, a lot of these teams, this year or other years, will have down seasons. I mean, Utah State has been having down seasons. Colorado State doesn't really add very much. San Diego State has been pretty terrible for a lot of the last few years. Fresno State's up and down. Boise State hasn't been that good over the last 3 years. Everybody has down seasons. So not every single team in any of these groupings are going to be good every single year. But as an average, and also moving forward from this present date into the future based on what these teams are doing in their trajectory, as an average, these are really strong teams put together. I mean, Nevada is a program that almost beat SMU. Jeff Choate is turning that program around. You look at Nevada in a few years under his leadership. What are they able to do under year one? This is an 8-win program. Not this year, but moving forward. San Jose State, but the Navy coach coming over for San Jose State really turned things around there. I mean, they took Washington State to the wire. San Jose State, they've been a program that's been off and on. They won the Mountain West in 2020. This is not just a nothing program. Maybe media-wise, market-wise, they don't add anything to your schedule, but that's not the CFP committee doesn't look at your media numbers. They look at your wins that you have. San Jose State is a team that can add to your strength of schedule. New Mexico under Bronco Mendenhall. Niamatololo, thank you. There we go, for San Jose State. I just wanted to prove that I could say it. But New Mexico under Bronco Mendenhall. That team is definitely on an upward trajectory. I mean, they're probably still going to struggle to get to 6 wins this year. But again, give that team a couple more years. That's a 7+ win program. Get some good wins out of conference. Hawaii is a team that has been to the Sugar Bowl, that in the past has been good, could get there again. Sure, Hawaii is really the only one that's been consistently terrible with not really any kind of upward trajectory. But I mean, they almost beat UCLA. Again, not a very good team overall, but they're Power 4. And Hawaii is a team that... And my point here with all these teams, and Wyoming, obviously, they took Texas to the wire until they kind of came back in the end there last year, and they've been strong in a role, and I think they've got a future here if they can kind of continue to fix some things, and Air Force is consistently strong with the option. My point with all of these teams is when you talk about bottom level for the Mountain West, it's not the same as talking about bottom level for other conferences. Bottom level for the Mountain West is still generally a pretty strong grouping of teams. Almost any of these teams, minus Hawaii, could win or get close to winning the MAC or Conference USA. Almost all of these teams, in a general regular basis, could be mid-level to potential challengers, maybe like fifth out, dark horses in the American Athletic Conference or in the Sun Belt, mid-level probably in the Sun Belt. But the bottom level of the Mountain West is not like the bottom barrel of the FBS. Yes, you do gain something if there is no cost to being able to take the best teams and present that as a better media value. But these teams are not bad enough to justify almost $170 million. They just aren't. And then you bring in the other negatives as well. 8 teams. Pac-12 sitting at 8 teams. That is extremely unstable. That's extremely unstable. It's not a lightest grouping wins the race type of situation. Oh, we're going to cut off the chaff. We'll be shifty and mobile. We'll be able to present, a nice tight media market to a potential media partner here, and there'll be more money spread out amongst fewer teams. The more money bit might be true for now, but conference realignment's not done. And if you are presenting yourself as the best conference left, you're going to be the first conference come after. And when you do, you lose one team, you are now sent into chaos. The smaller conferences have consistently had the hardest time in the modern era of college football. Not just as far as being vulnerable to realignment, but also on a national scale, being looked at as weaker. You're not looked at as, oh, you have stronger teams, because again, all these teams now have to play each other. So for right now, this is looked at as a really strong grouping. But all these teams, Washington State, or Oregon State, Fresno State, San Diego State, Boise State, all these teams have to play each other. Somebody has to be the bottom end of the conference. You no longer get your easy win versus Nevada or Hawaii or Air Force if they're in a down year. The Air Force is really never an easy win. But my point is, you don't get those easy wins. Somebody has to be that. And so you're now going to have teams that are, Fresno State finishing at 6-6, or, Washington State only getting to 7 wins or something like that. Because everybody, the best is beating the best. But when from the outside perspective, okay, you just beat a 7-win team. Why do we care? And so it's not looked at as the best of the best left. It's looked at what are you doing currently. And you can win great out of conference, but if you're eating yourself up and beating yourself up in conference, and now you don't have a bunch of 10-win programs because you won't, you're just going to be looked at as this smallest conference with a couple of good teams. Big 12, big reason that they lost Texas and Oklahoma was because of their conference size and being the smallest and weakest conference and not being able to bring in the same amount of media money and just having a national perspective that they weren't as strong compared to others. And a big part of that was not being willing to expand and add more teams. Pac-12, same thing. Mountain West, now in a situation, Pac-12, now in a situation being 8 teams. Whether or not you agree with me about small conferences being weaker, they are certainly more vulnerable. Mountain West loses 4 teams. They're still a conference. They now lose 1 to 2 more teams. They only need to add a couple to still be a conference. Pac-12 loses 1 program, they're done. Pac-12 loses 1 program, they're in trouble. Loses 2 programs, they're really on the rocks. Loses 3 or 4, and they are killed as a conference. That is what you get when you have a smaller. It's not more agile, it's just more vulnerable. You also have the issue right now with just adding Mountain West programs. This is no longer a lucrative TV deal opportunity. The TV markets for incentivizing buy-in and a bidding war by the TV executives coming in, the big part of that was going to be able to pitch a chance to bundle your strengths. Right now, ESPN is paying for the American Athletic Conference teams. The Mountain West is paying for the Mountain West schools. Fox and CBS are paying for the Mountain West schools. You had an opportunity to steal some of those other programs, to steal some of the programs from the other TV competitors and bring them under your umbrella. You also had an opportunity to bundle the best teams out there for the group of 5 in general into one umbrella and just pay for the teams that people want to watch. Now, you're paying for the teams you're already paying for. Fox and CBS are already paying for every single one of these teams minus Oregon State and Washington State. They're already paying for them. ESPN hasn't been interested, not to a level that has engaged in any kind of bidding for the Mountain West. Who knows what's going to happen in 2026? But currently, they didn't take the bid earlier. They haven't been interested in the Mountain West, and now there's no incentive for them to be interested anymore. There's no additional incentive for them to be interested, is what I'm trying to say. You add Memphis, Tulane, UTSA, maybe go after USF, whatever. You add those teams that they are interested because they're paying for that. They're paying for the Navy and Army and the Commanders Cup and all that. But a big part of that is they're paying for the media and national brands that those other four bring. Again, USF not so much, but the other three, they're paying for that. You bring those over to Mountain West. Now they want to keep that, and maybe now they also have a high incentive to come after those Mountain West schools that they may have been interested in the first place, but not to a level that they were actually going to go after them. But now you bring in the American Athletic Conference teams, and it's enough. Okay, we're going to go after it. Fox doesn't want to lose it. Now you have a bidding war. You don't have that anymore. Who's going to pay for this conference? And if they are going to pay for this conference, they're not going to pay more than they were already paying for the Mountain West. Not significantly more, because it's basically, from their perspective, it's just the Mountain West again. It's just the Mountain West plus Oregon State and Washington State. Why should they pay more money for this conference? You're also, and this is probably the biggest drawback, you're not the clear group of 6 rep to the CFP. You're not the clear best, 5th best champion. You have a good case for it, but it's not far and away clear because your biggest competitor, from a media perspective at least, the American Athletic Conference is still out there kicking. That conference has not been crippled. They are still strong, and they will challenge you and continue to challenge you. And they have excellent conference leadership, and they will continue to come after you. They will continue to promote themselves in a national way, like they did when they're coming against the Mountain West. You're dealing with all the same issues that you did with the Mountain West. Mountain West has had a good case to be the best CFP rep, New Year's Six rep, whatever conference for the last 5-6 years, or even going back to 2014, 10 years. They've had that consistent case, but time and time again, American Athletic Conference, because the East Coast bias has snuck in, and you still have to go up against that. And you don't have the clear top teams. You have the top Mountain West teams, but you don't have the top teams of the American Athletic Conference to strengthen your case. So not only is your competitor still out there fighting, but you also haven't made yourself stronger yet. And so this is that you're not the clear. You're going to be in competition every year, and you're not guaranteeing that your conference champion is going to go every single year. You don't have the strength from bringing in American Athletic Conference teams to clearly outpace the Sun Belt, and you don't have the weakened American Athletic Conference that you don't have to worry about them anymore. It's a double whammy, terrible situation for the Pac-12. 2 more points. 1, the Pac-12 name and brand that a lot of people say is a big point of emphasis, and that it's not so much stronger than the Mountain West that it is worth $170 million. So even if it is somewhat stronger, it's not $170 million stronger. And at the end of the day, it's really not that much stronger. Overall, Pac-12 has a little bit more name recognition, but that is slipping away every day. And in 5 years, nobody's going to care whether it's called the Pac-12 or Mountain West if it's this lineup of teams. Because all they're going to see is just the Mountain West. Whether that's true or not, all that the national perspective, and again, that's all that matters in today's day and age when there's no computer rankings, when it's all human bias, when it's a bunch of people sitting in a room with their own biases, and a lot of them leaning East Coast, sitting together and deciding your future. The only thing that matters is the national perspective. And if all they see are Mountain West schools in a new conference, they're just going to see the Pac-12 as just the Mountain West. The Pac-12 still has some name recognition brand for right now because of what the Pac-12 was a year ago. That is going to fade, and it is not worth the long-term value is not worth $170 million today. It's not. And the very final point, which I've already said, is we now get Gold and Sam Navarez. This is just terrible in the first place. Like, this was the biggest drawback that was never going to be covered. Like, it could be overwhelmed by more positives if other things worked out. But overall, this 1 point was always going to be a negative that didn't have a positive upside. Gloria Navarez has been an incredible commissioner for the Mountain West. And what she's doing right now to stay in this fight and come back at the Pac-12 further proves that. Teresa Gold is the complete opposite. She's the antithesis of Gloria Nevarez. And our future, as now members of this conference, is dictated by her. And that is not a stable foundation to be in. Now, I want to make it very, very clear. I'm not blaming Jeremiah Dickey for any of this. This is not his fault. He had no, very first off point, he had no choice in this. If San Diego State, Fresno State, Colorado State leave, and I don't think that Boise State was the first team out the door, and if anything that he has said in his press conferences indicates, same thing for Spencer Danielson indicates, they were not the first team out the door. The other teams jumped, and they didn't have a choice. Do not get me wrong. The Pac-12 that exists now is better than being stuck in the Mountain West that exists now. It is. The 8-team, now 7-team Mountain West, if Boise State was still there, it'd be 8. But if Boise State was there with UNLV and these other teams that remain, looking in at the Pac-12, that we would be having very different conversations saying, okay, they need to jump. They need to jump with those other programs. Like that, you have to. Because of what has happened, you have to go. So he didn't have a choice. There's no blame to be handed out here. Also, none of this is his fault. It's not Jeremiah Dickey didn't say, hey, you know what? Those American Athletic Conference teams that we really need to make this a success, let's lowball them. That's right. Lowball them and see if they'll come. That's Jeremiah Dickey wasn't doing this. That's not his fault. He hasn't had any say in this other than the initial push to get Boise State here, which again, didn't have a choice. Second factor, and I have no inside information on this. This is purely speculation. But my gut tells me that the Mountain West teams that left were misled in some way by the Pac-12 leadership. There's no way that these teams would just jump. Some of them might, but even the Colorado States, even the San Diego States of the world would need some assurances that there were certain levels of interest and a clear plan to go get other teams to make this worth it, to not just make this Mountain West 2.0. They would have to have something. And whatever they were told has not come to fruition. So, I also think that what Jeremiah Dickey was operating on, the best information that he had, and again, he had no choice, but even the information he's had, was misleading. Based on everything that we have seen since the Pac-12 merger. Or not merger, but since they brought on the Mountain West teams. So again, this is nothing directed. Do not take that in any way as directed at Jeremiah Dickey at all. He made the right choice. I would make that same choice. He had to go. Those 3 teams jumped. Boise State has to go. But the final question here, at the end of the day, is this better than just Oregon State and Washington State joining the Mountain West? It's not $170 million better. It's just not. This is a good basketball conference. It's a strong football conference. But it's not so much stronger in a way that it's $170 million. And I said that my reaction on the net positives, whether that this turned out to be just better than what could be, again, Boise State being left behind, because again, it is always better than that, or if it could be a true positive, an actual step up, not just a lateral slight incline move, but a step up in conference would depend on who they add. They're just adding Mountain West schools that Boise State was already in a conference with. So it's not a step up. It's just a lateral move. Again, yeah, you get rid of some teams that on a general basis are not top programs. But you are paying so much money. This is Power 4 move money to go join a conference that is at almost every level the same as the one that you left behind. American Athletic Conference teams were the key to this being a major upgrade for the Mountain West schools that joined. Being able to counter that East Coast bias alone would have been huge in addition to everything else. We're not going to see the TV money that we could have without those schools. We're not going to see the bowl opportunities that we could have with those schools. We're not going to see the bowl opportunities, maybe not. But we're not going to see the CFP opportunities. The chances of solidifying, saying, complete control. Control what you can control, right? Complete control over our own destiny. We no longer have that without the American Athletic Conference teams. Now, you might say, well, hold up here. Hold up. Nothing set in stone. Simply saying that you commit to somewhere doesn't mean that you're going to go. We see that in recruiting all the time. We saw that with the Pac-12 teams before they all left. I mean, like days before they left, basically. So we've seen that before. American Athletic Conference teams could still come join the Pac-12. And I am hoping and praying with everything in me that that is what happens here, to bandage up and make this a strong move. But the question is, because again, this is probably negotiating. This could just be negotiating. This could be American Athletic Conference teams say, we need more. Pac-12 says, we don't want to give you more. We're going to go after some other teams to kind of show you we don't need you. See if you come. Kind of, who blinks first. But the question is, if you still intend to go after, if you intend to up your offer and say, okay, we'll give you $15 million a team. Now you're only paying $10 million to leave your conference, which was the original exit fee for 2 years, or maybe we'll give you $20 million, so you're actually leaving with less. Whatever these teams need to come, we're going to pay you to come. And financially, I mean, it'd be worth it. It would have been worth it. If you're going to do that, why bring in Utah State? If you're going to bring in 2-3 AAC schools, and your plan is to do that and to pay for them, why bring in Utah State? The Mountain West for Utah State paid $12 million to bring them in. Plus, if they are assisting with them, and another $17 million. Either Utah State's paying that or the Pac-12 is paying that. I would assume that Utah State, especially with all the money that Gloria Nevarez was throwing at Mountain West schools, is not paying that full amount. So you're paying $29 million for Utah State. If you're bringing in Utah State and UNLV, you're now paying $58.5 million to bring in those two schools, when you could have just paid the full exit fees with no poaching penalties to bring in Memphis and Tulane for $50 million, save yourselves $8 million, and get so much better additions to the conference. Why would you not just do that? The fact that they have brought in Utah State leads me to think that they are not going back after in a hard-pushed kind of way to go get the American Athletic Conference teams. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me for this conference realignment. And again, if you've already moved in this direction, you've already paid $29 million for Utah State, you'd have to pay to get two American Athletic Conference teams, because I don't think just one's going to come by themselves. They need at least some regionality. You'd have to pay $50 million. UNLV is $29.5 million. That's a $20.5 million savings difference by just bringing UNLV. You're leaning in that direction. So I don't see that happening. It could theoretically happen, and I would love to be wrong on that. But if you're going to do that, why bring in Utah State in the first place? The fact that they've done that indicates to me that they're not. The final potential option here is that's definitely on the table. The money is building and building. And a lot of people are starting to say and see the same things that I am, that these conferences are basically the same as what was at the beginning. They're not the same right now. I want to continue to make that clear. They're not the Pac-12 that is right now, the Mountain West that is right now are not the same. But the Pac-12 that exists right now is basically the Mountain West that was. It just plus Oregon State and Washington State. So if that's the case, if that's what you're going to do, why not just do a merger? That is still on the table. The Pac-12 can get rid of all these fees if they just straight up merge. If Oregon State and Washington State just say, okay, never mind. Hey, sorry, ignore us. We're going to join your conference. They could do that. What's more likely is a reverse merger. You need 9 conference members to dissolve the Mountain West, 9 conference members to vote to dissolve. They're not going to vote to dissolve unless they're joining. So you need to bring in 9 conference members. You've already brought in 5. If you bring in Utah State as a 6th, you would still need 3. So you need to bring in, and again, the options on the table for bringing in, expanding are not what they were looking at in the first place, but it's better than paying all that money. You bring in Air Force, I don't know. I'm going to say if it was up to me, just looking at this table of Nevada, San Jose State, New Mexico, Hawaii, Wyoming, and Air Force, I'd say continue in the basketball tradition, add New Mexico, so you continue to strengthen your basketball brand, and then add Wyoming and Air Force. Wyoming, you get the rivalry with Colorado State, and Air Force, you get the viewership strength that they bring in with the military association, the rivalries with the Army and Navy. They've consistently been a pretty strong program in football. So I think those are the 3 teams that you go after. You bring those in. Now you can vote to dissolve the Mountain West. They can join the Pac-12. It's a reverse merger, basically, and you don't have to pay those fees. So that is a theoretical possibility. And I think it becomes a stronger and stronger possibility every single day. The Pac-12 would have to give up some pride, but they would get to keep a lot of money would actually make this move make sense. But if that happens, for Boise State's perspective alone, and I'm not talking conference-wise, for Oregon State and Washington State, that is the better move. You do get to cut off some chaff of the bottom of the Mountain West and bring the majority of the stronger teams in. It's still basically just the Mountain West, but it's a little bit of a stronger, more agile Mountain West. You're still keeping it at 9 teams. You're still at 11 programs. Add Gonzaga for basketball, so you have 12 for basketball, 11 for football. You're still big enough to have some stability. You can lose at that point up to 3 members, right? You can lose up to 3 members and still be a conference. So overall, it makes a lot of sense strength-wise as a conference. But for Boise State, it's not a good move. For Boise State, just joining that is not what they were promised. If Jeremiah Dickey was looking at that on the table, again, I don't have any kind of inside information. I haven't talked about this. But if he was, I'm assuming as an athletic director, if you're looking at the table of that conference versus just staying in the Mountain West that you have and adding Oregon State and Washington State, it's not a better move for you. It's not. It might be a slightly better move for the other teams overall, but for Boise State, who gets $1.8 million additional TV money, or whatever they were able to negotiate, 2026 would have been a little bit different. They'd have been able to negotiate their own thing, and with their recent rise in program, they could have probably negotiated more. So they get that special media designator. They would lose that in reverse merger, and if the worst case scenario happens, where they just simply join the Mountain West, they're going to lose that coming back, because the Mountain West is not. They'll accept them back, but they're not going to accept them back with that designator attached. That's going to be a contingent. There's no way. Boise State doesn't hold the negotiating chips to be able to keep that. It's not like Big East type situation right now. Where Mountain West was desperate to keep them and brought them back based on that, and then they were able to negotiate that media designator out of that. So if a merger happens, for Boise State, it's really, they don't gain anything either way. They end up in a net loss from where they were at before. So for Boise State, it's really the worst case scenario. For the Pac-12, it's the best, I think, case scenario as far as money goes if you can't get the American Athletic Conference teams. But for Boise State, it's really a worst case scenario. So at the end of the day, this is better than being in the Mountain West right now. But this entire situation, whether it's merging with the Mountain West teams, whether it's bringing on more Mountain West teams, whether it's adding UConn, every single element, minus the potential addition of Gonzaga, that is a benefit. That's a strong benefit. That could potentially outweigh the loss of the loss of the potential football strength here. I mean, that would be a huge boost for basketball-wise. But it's pretty close net-wise. No matter what happens for Boise State, this is better than what is right now, but it is not better than what was before. And so I'm positive that Boise State is part of this conference and not stuck in the Mountain West right now. But my excitement about this move has definitely been dimmed overall. Unless we can get American Athletic Conference teams over. But just what this conference has become, it's not a Power 4 or Power 5. It certainly is not that. It's not a conference that can definitely be the best team for the CFP. And it's not a conference that, when you look at it, is giving Boise State the strength to make this a clear step up from what was before. And so this has been a disappointing day. This has been a very, very tough day. And I know that there are those out there that are going to try and justify. I'm seeing it right now already, saying this is a clear positive, this is a clear step up. This is definitely, they're throwing out a lot of stuff that doesn't really make sense or is backed up by facts or logic, but they're trying to justify this move. And I understand that. I understand that want. I mean, again, we've been wanting to, as a Boise State fan base, we have been wanting to move up. We deserve it. We do. Boise State, everything that they have done, all of the Fiesta Bowls and all of the national brand and everything that the Blue Turf has done with Boise State, they deserve to be at the pinnacle of college football. They deserve it. And Boise State fans want that, and they want to believe that this can be that. But you cannot look at this with blinders on and just hope and pray. College football is not a religion. You cannot simply say, I trust that this is going to be better. You have to look at the facts. You have to have your expectations in the right position. And again, this is not in any way, This is not in any way an attack against Jeremiah Dickey. The fact that his hand is on the wheel gives me extreme confidence for Boise State moving forward, no matter what happens. Because he has proved through his leadership that he is an exceptional athletic director that will do what is best for this program. But the fan base needs to acknowledge that there are choppy waters ahead, that these are rough seas that Jeremiah Dickey and the athletic department is going to have to sail through, that we are not in that much significantly a different position that we were in the Mountain West, and we need to be prepared to expect the same challenges, and maybe more so now that we are under Teresa Gold versus the hope that we have with Gloria Nevarez. We need to be ready for those struggles so that we can respond appropriately to them. If you do not approach this with the right mindset now, you are going to be caught off guard when the negative situations happen. And you will, and the reaction will not be proportionate to the situation, because it will be something you were not prepared for. And I'm not doom and gloom out here calling for anybody to be fired or resign. Far from that. I'm not out here trying to be a wet blanket on the Pac-12 expansion. Pac-12 is doing that well enough on its own. I am not trying to add negativity to the fan base here, but I am imploring us as a fan base to acknowledge the situation that we're in, to acknowledge the bizarreness of what has happened, the unfortunateness of what has happened, and to be prepared for the future with the right expectations moving forward, so that we can appropriately support the athletic department for Boise State that's going to have to steer us through these waters that we're currently seeing ourselves in right now. And so it's an interesting situation. We'll see what happens next. I'm hoping obviously that we survive here as a conference with the Pac-12 and we don't have to come crawling back to the Mountain West and get put in a worse situation than we were before. And so, I'm hoping that, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm hoping UNLV does join. I'm also hoping that if the Pac-12 could go after those American Athletic Conference teams aggressively, still on the table, could go after them and add them, it would undo everything that we've talked about today, and it would be fantastic, and it would make it worth it. It would be unfortunate that we now have Utah State and UNLV also attached, but it would make it worth it moving forward. So that's what I'm hoping. Again, you have to look at the facts and the data, and you have to know what is, but and what is most likely, but at the same time, you're allowed as a fan to hope, and I'm going to, as a fan, continue to hope that this turns out to be a huge net positive for Boise State. But we have to acknowledge the facts that this has not turned out the way that we expected, and it's going to be a tough few days here as news comes out and we see what ends up happening for the Pac-12 moving forward. That's all I have to say on this subject. It's a lot to untangle. It's a lot to work through. I want to hear your thoughts and comments in the comments below. Please have that discussion with me. Please let me know your own perspective on this. If you disagree, I want to hear those disagreements. I would love to be convinced otherwise. So please have those discussions with me in the comments below. I look forward to reading through everyone's. Like I said, try to read through and like or comment on every single comment that's made on my videos. So thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Again, as always, make sure you like, subscribe. And no matter what conference we're in, no matter what conference mates we have, go Big Blue!